I thought this was going to be a quick job. It should have been just hacking off a bit of old render and redoing it to give it a fresh, nice, clean look. But what we found underneath was a diagonal crack running right down the wall. Now, so what started as an easy job has turned into a structural recovery mission. And in today's video, we're going to show you how to repair this wall using wall stitching kits. Very essential to get this right. We're going to show you the rights, the wrongs, and the pitfalls that you may cross when coming to it. So let's crack on and get on with it. Okay, so this is the wall we're looking at, but I mean, it's obviously an older building. You can see the crack running diagonally across there, cracks right through. So what we're going to use is a wall stitching kit. This is a resin product. We're going to go into that in a minute. But the first thing we want to do is grind some lines into the mortar lines of the brickwork. So what we're going to do is basically we've got to grind some points out where the crack's running through. You can see the crack there right in the middle. And we're going to start from the top, and then every third course we're going to grind a line. So every 3 courses we're grinding the top until you come to the bottom of where the crack finishes. And just to cover yourself, I'd actually go under another 3 courses just to make sure that that whole area is secured. From there we want to, I've just got the blower, it's actually my mate's blower, but he's just getting rid of all the dust within the grout lines there. And then what we're going to do is do this. Now, structurally speaking, everyone goes for the Helifix kits. I'm going to show you a cheaper option you can get from Amazon, which is just as good. But this is a 2-part chemi resin. So what happens when you pump it, the activator goes with the resin, and then it sets off the chemical reaction for it to set. Now, I took a video, I deleted it off my phone, so I was going to show you a close-up, but I accidentally deleted it, so that was clever. But what we have here is there's some heli bars. So basically the steel bars that you insert within the lines. So you've grinded the line to the grinder blade's depth, and then we put the rod into the resin. So we want to push it deep, far back into that grind line as possible, and we want it to get right into the back there. From there, we apply another layer of resin on top of the bar. This is why it's called a wall stitching kit, because what we're essentially doing is holding the wall together, binding it together with these rods, and that's kind of what's going to keep it all closed in and keep it intact. As you can see, like we said, it's every 3 courses, but what I will tell you is a quick tip. Make sure that you try and put the rods in first, the heli bars, sorry, because you only have a small amount of time before the resin sets. It does set rapid, this stuff. It's about 3-4 minutes and it's completely gone. So you don't want to be fiddling about at this point. So make sure the rods fit before you even try and do it. So like I say, put the resin first, put the heli bars in, and then you put another coating of resin on top. What I'm now doing is filling up with the patched in areas, because there was some sections where the resin didn't quite sit in. I'm just going to pump out the rest of the resin within the gaps. So like I say, it sets so fast that I end up going back to the previous one that I did, the resin would have set. So like I say, it's really quick acting stuff, and it does set rapid, so be aware of that. Now I'm just going to go into a scenario we need to talk about and the different cracks that you should worry about. So that was the first instance, that's the first situation. We had a diagonal crack. The crack was following along the mortar lines. Now that, generally speaking, isn't so scary to look at. But like I said in the video, there's another scenario we've really got to look out for. Now the big thing you really need to worry about, if you have a crack that runs right down a wall, running vertically down, straight down where it's cutting through the brick, this means 2 things. Let's go back to the first scenario. The first scenario, if you have a diagonal crack, all that means is that the base, the sub-base, is a bit of movement. That's completely normal. Buildings move and foundations are meant to move. That's part of their job. We've got to allow a certain amount of tolerance of movement. And even though there is a crack, it was following along the mortar lines and there was nothing structurally too scary there. So it's not affecting the actual base and structural integrity of the building. Now if you have a vertical crack that runs right down and it cuts through the bricks, as I've just shown you in this image, that is when you really need to worry. That means there's been a big drop and it could be something structurally very wrong with the base that the building stood on. Not only that, but the integrity of the building has also been affected because the bricks themselves have been chopped through. That is when you need to get a structural engineering. It's not good enough just to get a wall stitching kit. Get a professional to come in, have a look and check it out, because that is something that could be very serious and could potentially result in underpinning. So I just thought I'd mention that, show you the 2 scenarios. This one Again, diagonal cracks along mortar lines, not really that much to worry about. It's an older building, it's kind of expected. But that one is a bigger issue. Right, let's crack on with the video, and I'm going to show you another form of protection now that I'm going to apply to this wall to give it an extra layer of strength. Okay, here's the next layer of protection. Now, this isn't a video about rendering, but I'm going to show you a quick tip. What I've done is applied a tight coat of render onto the brickwork. I've had a primer applied to the bricks, that's why they're white. I'm not just rendering over painted brick, that would be stupid. But what we're doing is I'm adding some fiberglass mesh to this wall, and what that's going to do is any movement, any cracks or anything that might happen again in the future, this is going to hold it together and it's going to allow for that movement without affecting the top of the base coat. So what we want to do is we're not pushing the mesh tight onto the render, we're kind of just gently troweling it in so it sits nicely on top. So we've literally got mesh running throughout the whole wall here now, this whole rendered wall. Obviously the crack's covered with the resin, so we're safe there. And we've got this extra layer of protection, so if there is any movement, like we say, it's going to be covered. But what you don't want to do is push it really tight so it touches the brickwork. We kind of just want it to sit at the forefront of that first layer of render, and then we're going to add another tight coat of render on top of it. And that's what this is. We're just adding another layer directly on top of that sort of fiberglass rendered mesh whilst it's still wet. You want this to be green on green, which basically means we're applying render, mesh, and then render directly on top. And that's going to keep that render mesh bedded underneath this layer, and then that way when it comes to its setting, we've got a nice layer of protection. So we do this, and what I usually do, I don't show it in this video because it's not full garden rendering, I'd rule this off and then we end up doing a scratch coat. So that's it. That's how you make sure that you wall stitch your walls and make sure there's no cracks in the future. Now, if you want to see the ultimate guide I've got to rendering, where we go through the whole process of rendering, which is what I recommend you do after this wall stitching kit, then click this video on the left. It's the best video I've created on a full garden rendering from start to finish with the easiest methods possible. So click that there if you want to learn rendering, and click subscribe on the right. Thank you, bye.